Jon Moxley just fired back at Seth Rollins and Braun Strowman, and what he said is sending shockwaves through the entire wrestling world. What is going on, Suplex Rumble family? Welcome back to the channel where we cover the biggest stories, the most explosive moments, and the crossover drama that has everyone talking. If you're new to the Rumble, hit that subscribe button right now and turn on notifications because we're about to break down something absolutely massive that's got the wrestling community buzzing. Today, we're diving into Jon Moxley's first public comments since Seth Rollins unleashed Braun Strowman on Monday Night Raw. The AEW World Champion has been silent for days, and when Mox finally speaks, you know it's going to be worth the wait. We're going to break down everything Moxley said, analyze what Seth and Braun's actions mean for the wrestling landscape, and discuss why this cross-promotional tension is exactly what fans have been craving. Let's get into it. Before we get to Moxley's reaction, we need to set the stage and talk about what went down on Monday Night Raw that got everyone's attention. Seth Rollins has been on an absolute mission lately. The visionary, the revolutionary, whatever you want to call him, Seth has been making it crystal clear that he's not satisfied with just dominating WWE. He's been throwing verbal shots across company lines, making references that have fans speculating about dream matches and forbidden door scenarios. Now, Seth is one of the greatest performers of this generation. He's a former WWE champion, he's a Grand Slam champion, and he's someone who has consistently proven that he can deliver on the biggest stages. But lately, there's been this edge to him, this frustration that seems to be driving him to push boundaries. Then we have Braun Strowman, the monster among men. This is a human being who stands 6 feet 8 inches tall, weighs nearly 400 pounds, and has made a career out of destroying everything in his path. Braun has flipped ambulances, he's dominated battle royals, and he's established himself as one of the most physically imposing forces in all of professional wrestling. On Raw, in what can only be described as a calculated move, Seth Rollins essentially pointed Braun Strowman in a very specific direction. Without getting into specifics that might reference copyrighted content, let's just say Seth made it abundantly clear that he sees opportunities beyond WWE's borders, and he's willing to use every weapon in his arsenal, including the monster among men himself. The implications were obvious. The message was clear, and the wrestling world immediately started connecting the dots to Jon Moxley and AEW. The energy in the arena was electric. Social media exploded, and everyone started asking the same question: how would Jon Moxley respond? And then, after days of silence, Jon Moxley finally spoke. And let me tell you, it was everything we could have hoped for and more. Moxley didn't do some elaborate press conference. He didn't need theatrical lighting or a corporate backdrop. That's not who Jon Moxley is. From what we understand, Mox addressed this situation in the raw, unfiltered way that has made him one of the most authentic voices in professional wrestling. With the AEW World Championship presumably nearby, Moxley delivered the kind of promo that reminds you why he's been such a compelling figure across multiple promotions and multiple continents. First, let's talk about the tone. Moxley wasn't panicking. He wasn't defensive. He had that calm, controlled intensity that actually makes him more dangerous. It's the difference between someone yelling threats and someone calmly promising consequences. One makes noise, the other makes you believe. Mox acknowledged what happened on Raw. He didn't pretend it didn't happen or dismiss it. He looked at it head-on, the way a true champion should. Because that's what real confidence looks like. You don't need to pretend threats don't exist when you're ready to deal with whatever comes your way. When Moxley talked about Seth Rollins, there was this fascinating dynamic at play. These are two men who shared a locker room, who came up through the same system, who once stood side by side. But they've taken very different paths, and those paths have led to very different philosophies about what professional wrestling should be. Moxley made it clear that he respects what Seth has accomplished. You can't deny Seth's resume. But respect for accomplishments doesn't mean agreement with approach or philosophy. And that's where the tension becomes so compelling. There was this underlying message in Moxley's words: you want to play these games? You want to send monsters my direction? I've been in wars you can't imagine. I've bled in buildings on every continent. I've proven myself in every style and every environment. So if you think I'm intimidated, you don't know who you're dealing with. Now, when it came to Braun Strowman, Moxley's approach was different. There wasn't personal history there in the same way. But Mox made something absolutely clear: size and power don't intimidate him. And the beautiful thing about Jon Moxley's career is that he can back that up. This is a man who has been in death matches, who has fought in hardcore environments where weapons and brutality are the norm, who has taken on giants before and found ways to survive and conquer. Moxley essentially said, "You're a monster? I've fought monsters. You're powerful? I've overcome power. You want to step into my world? Let's see how you handle it when things get really uncomfortable." Moxley also referenced his position as AEW World Champion, and this is important. He's not just speaking as Jon Moxley the individual. He's speaking as the man who represents an entire company, who carries a championship that means something to millions of fans. There was pride in his words. Not arrogance, but genuine pride in what he's accomplished and what AEW represents. He talked about building something different, about creating an alternative, about proving that there are multiple ways to reach the top of this industry. And then came what everyone was waiting for. While we can't quote exact words, the sentiment was unmistakable. If Seth Rollins and Braun Strowman want to test themselves against the best in the world, if they want to see what it's like outside the confines of what they're comfortable with, Jon Moxley is ready. Anytime, anywhere, under any circumstances. It was a challenge, but it was also a warning. Moxley wasn't begging for these matches. He was making it clear that if they come his way, they better be prepared for a level of intensity and violence they might not be ready for. Let's step back and talk about what this entire situation means for professional wrestling as a whole, because this is bigger than just three individuals talking tough. First and foremost, this is the kind of cross-promotional tension that fans have been craving for years. We live in an era where information travels instantly, where social media connects everyone, and where fans watch everything. The idea of maintaining completely separate bubbles for different wrestling companies doesn't really exist anymore. When major stars from different promotions acknowledge each other, when they create this tension and possibility, it generates the kind of buzz that benefits everyone. It gets fans talking. It gets media coverage. It creates dream match scenarios in people's minds. But beyond just the spectacle, there's a legitimate philosophical clash happening here. WWE represents one approach to professional wrestling: highly produced, corporate-backed, global entertainment empire. AEW represents another wrestling-focused, talent-empowered, alternative approach to the business. Neither is inherently right or wrong. They're just different. And when representatives of these different philosophies clash, it creates fascinating narratives about what wrestling should be, who it's for, and what matters most. Let's be honest, fans are already fantasy booking these matches in their heads. Jon Moxley vs. Seth Rollins is a dream match that writes itself. Former allies turned philosophical opponents. Two men who took different paths to the top. Technical excellence, storytelling mastery, and genuine emotional investment from fans who've watched both their journeys. Jon Moxley vs. Braun Strowman is a completely different animal. It's the ultimate underdog versus monster dynamic. Moxley would be outsized, outweighed, and outpowered, but he'd be more experienced in hardcore environments and more willing to go to dark places to win. That contrast creates compelling drama. From a business standpoint, this kind of attention is gold for everyone involved. When major stars are talking about each other across company lines, when fans are engaged and speculating, it drives interest across the board. Merchandise sells. Streaming numbers increase. Social media engagement spikes. And most importantly, casual fans who might only follow one company start paying attention to both. So where do we go from here? Because talk is one thing, but action is what really matters in this business. Let's be real about what's actually possible in today's wrestling landscape. Full-scale crossover events between major promotions are complicated. There are contracts, broadcast deals, corporate relationships, and 1,000 other factors that go into making something like that happen. But, and this is important, we've seen that barriers can be broken down. We've seen talent movement between companies. We've seen special appearances. We've seen forbidden doors get kicked open when the right circumstances align. In the immediate future, we're probably looking at an escalating war of words on social media and in interviews. Each of these men has platforms, and they're not shy about using them. Every promo, every interview, every cryptic tweet becomes part of the narrative. This keeps fans engaged even without physical confrontation. It builds anticipation. It creates layers to the story. Long-term, who knows what's possible? The wrestling business is constantly evolving. Relationships between companies change. Contracts expire. Opportunities arise. What seems impossible today might be happening 18 months from now. The fact that these conversations are happening publicly, that fans are engaged and interested, makes the possibility more real with each passing day. In the meantime, all three of these men will continue doing what they do best, performing at the highest level in their respective rings. Moxley will continue tearing through AEW as champion. Rollins will continue proving why he's one of WWE's most valuable assets. Strowman will continue being an unstoppable force of nature. And every time they're in action, fans will be thinking about these potential dream matches. Suplex Rumble family, Jon Moxley breaking his silence as AEW champion in response to Seth Rollins and Braun Strowman is exactly the kind of moment that makes professional wrestling so captivating. This isn't just about three talented performers talking tough. It's about competing philosophies, different approaches to the business, and the tantalizing possibility of dream matches that fans desperately want to see. Jon Moxley proved once again why he's one of the most authentic and compelling voices in wrestling. He didn't back down, he didn't make excuses, and he made it absolutely clear that he's ready for whatever comes his way. That's what champions do. That's what leaders do. Seth Rollins and Braun Strowman have thrown down a challenge, whether explicitly or implicitly, and Moxley has accepted it in his own way. Now we wait to see if talk turns into action, if possibilities become realities, and if these dream scenarios actually play out. What do you think? Do you want to see Moxley versus Rollins? How about Moxley versus Strowman? Do you think these matches will actually happen? Drop your thoughts in the comments because I love hearing from this community. If you enjoyed this breakdown, smash that like button. It really helps the channel grow and lets me know what content you want to see. And definitely subscribe to Suplex Rumble if you haven't already, with notifications on, so you never miss our coverage of the biggest stories in wrestling. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, keep celebrating this incredible business, respect all the performers putting their bodies on the line, and remember, in professional wrestling, anything is possible. This is Suplex Rumble, and I'm out.